when I should have let myself but I couldn't have. Oh no, I couldn't have. I always open my gut when I shouldn't have. Oh no, I shouldn't have.
If the button works. Chief, thank you so much. I'm not a huge kind of like advocate of the old reputation type thing, but when enough people tell me that one person is a pretty sound bloke, I would like to talk to that pretty sound bloke. You know what I mean? So here we go. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, mate. I'm not too sure how to respond to that, but that's a very nice intro. And looking forward to having a chat, mate. Should be great.
You're the boss. Have I got to call you boss now?
Nah, I don't think anyone's ever called me boss. In fact, when they do, I definitely don't turn around.
Yeah.
If you say boss in my house, I swear I'm not the one turning around. So yeah, you can call me what you want, mate.
It's just like the members though, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like, oh, what do you want me to do, boss? You're like, you're talking to me. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, we're just like kind of the ADHD kids that like to put our trackies into our socks and be like, hey, let's do some fitness today, guys. You know, it's like you guys that are the smart ones here. Like,
That's funny. Someone leaving today even just said, "I'll see you later, coach." And like normally my members just call me Ed, like they don't call me coach. But I get a real kick out of that still. Just like people acknowledging me as sort of the coach of the gym, even though I've been that for like, better part of 15 years or whatever. But yeah, Ed will do fine.
Coach has got to be like the highest of like accolade, to be called. I mean, because we're gonna still look at our coaches that were way back in the day, right? And they're to us their coach. So when someone calls us coach, you're like, no, that's these people. We're paying it forward or paying it backwards, I should say. You're like, well, hold on a minute. Now we've kind of progressed through, and ultimately we've taken up that role. Whatever sport you play in, you're always looking at somebody around who might have been that role model, right? And you're just like, oh no, that person's coach. I'm just Ed or Alex or the kind of crazy guy at the front who swears way too much.
Yeah, it's funny. You can get bogged down in semantics, but I probably prefer the term trainer for the person taking the class. And when I think coach, I always think as not just a person who's teaching movement, but somebody who's, I guess, managing, the entire organization and all the people in it. Like I sort of think about the coach role as something like a professional sporting organization and how many people have to be under that person. So realistically, that's what gym owners and affiliate owners are. They are that role. But yeah, I don't get called coach very often. I don't get addressed as coach very often. So it's very humbling when that does happen.
Mate, how many hours are you on the gym floor these days?
Alex, it's been an interesting journey because I probably pulled back over the last 4 or 5 years because the gym needed a little bit more management. And I also, I wear a few hats. So I was conscious of just making sure that my members were getting coached by people who were all in. But probably the last 12 to 18 months, I've just I probably just stepped back onto the floor more and more because I really love it. And that's where I feel my skill set is. So at the moment, I'm probably taking sort of 10 to 15 classes a week. And that's by choice. Like I actually really love being in the thick of it. That's where I think I do my best work. And that's where I get to connect with people the most. So yeah, it's a daily thing at the moment, taking classes at the gym, and I'm really glad it's that way.
It's funny you say that, man. Like, it doesn't matter how many people I end up talking to, I look up to, right? And if they end up transitioning through the roles and they take more of a managerial role and a bit more of a holding the umbrella and the line for everybody, like a Gandalf, like you shall not fucking pass type thing. And it's funny, it doesn't matter how many people I speak to and who I speak to, all of them usually say the premise of, I miss being on the dance floor. Because like we're in the weeds, we get stuck in that there's mud on the hands, and we're like interacting with human beings and doing the thing that we fell in love with, right? Actually making the difference, right? And I think about coaching of like, we're supposed to be good in a week, great in 6 months, but unfucking beatable within a year, right? Like, because you just don't develop that relationship with somebody that fast. It's just be around each other, rub each other up the wrong way, usually, say the wrong joke, get to know them, they get to know you. And then, like, in a year's time, fingers crossed it's a little bit quicker, but in a year's time, let's say, like, you know each other inside and out, and you can really get into like the actual benefit of, okay, the coach is here, they know me instantly as soon as they walk in the room. Okay, this is what we're gonna do. This is the person you need me to be today, and it's got to be this kind of shapeshifter, this ever evolving character.
Yeah, it really does. I'm not the same coach that I was when I first started on the coaching floor, and I think I appreciate the role of the coach a little bit more with the experience I've had.
Mm.
And that could be said for any profession, but I I've been really reflecting the last few years on, hey, why did I get into this industry and why am I still in this industry? And ultimately it's because I believe that physical activity and CrossFit can change people's life all for the better. And the way that I can have the most influence on that is being at the pointy end of the spear, like being the person who opens the roller door, says good morning to people when they're perhaps having a crappy week, pushes them a little bit harder than they want to. So they're like, hey, I can do this. And building the business and working with our affiliates, I really enjoy that because I know the flow and effect that has. But on a really selfish level, I get my kick out of being involved in it firsthand. Like I get my kick out of being involved in the 6 a.m. class and taking people through those moments. That's what's really special to me. So yeah, man, back on the floor a fair bit. And like I said, really loving it.
What are your values?
Man, we've been really doing a lot of work on this lately and reflecting on personal values and the business values as well. I think like always I come back to these ones and they sound like a bit of cliches, but I really value honesty
Yeah.
and to un to unpack that a little bit, honesty is not just telling the truth, although I'm sure that's a component to it. But honesty is actually just reflecting on where you're truly at and being okay with that and rocking up and being like, hey, this is the effort I have today, and this is the result you're going to get. And I'm okay that perhaps that's not the best in the room or the best in the class or whatever it is, but I'm going to put that out there. And by honestly putting that out there, then I can get some help or I can get what I need from that. So that's been sort of the number one thing I try to instill in the members in terms of values that we have at the gym. Like just be honest with where you're at, because if you're honest with where you're at, I can help you the most. So that's like our number one value. Then we value hard work, um, and we value community. And I know a lot of gyms will value that stuff, but all those words, they have actions behind them. They're not just sort of like, here's what I value, here's what's important. It's like, okay, how do you live that every day? What are the actions? And honesty is asking for help when you need it. That's the key behind that value. Hard work is just trying to do a little bit more than you think was possible, and trusting the coaches when they ask you to work hard. Be like, hey, no, you can add a little bit more weight to that. No, I think you can actually do this many reps, or should shoot for this many rounds. And then the community piece is always it's just simple stuff. Like, when somebody's new or when somebody walks into the space, greet them, ask them how they're going. And those are the little acts that build those values. So that's the stuff we focus on, man, at the gym.
Mate, I think that honesty piece is a beautiful thing, right? I think we fell off the rails a little bit for a few years of just like grind yourself into a fine dust, like every day is go hard day, and don't get me wrong, it's fun when we're young, dumb, and full of cum. But then we kind of walk around with a few more beats and bruises than we should do, and I think we provide a disservice to the overall community of like mankind, right? Because a lot of people end up getting intimidated by it because they're like, wait, hold on a minute, I can't provide that. I have a 30-minute window within my day because I have all these other responsibilities or whatever else. You're like, oh, we're actually making this an exclusive thing
Yep.
just by like going as hard as you can all the time and blasting the music, shirts off before 3, 2, 1, go. And you're like, whoa, hold on a minute. Like GPP is the base of the pyramid. Like that
Yep.
should be the base of the frigging business too. And like ultimately, if our goal is to quote unquote help people, help people full stop, to those two words, you've really got to end up stripping them down, right? Rather than like be an athlete or
Yeah.
work with the top 0.01%. And that's fantastic. Like there's always going to be room for that for coaches to end up kind of transitioning into if that's their jam. But there's so many more faces out there that we can end up helping across so many more demographics, learning so many more things from these people. And I think it's not taking the intensity piece out, is it? It's like, okay, well, that's going to have to be a moving goalpost, and it's going to have to be relative to us, the individual, everything, like day to day, whatever it is. And that's just where our job gets, in my eyes, interesting, because it's like, well, how are they showing up? We need to be a fantastic reader of people, never mind like books. It's like you can be as dyslexic as you want, but you need to be able to read people very well. And it's like, okay, cool. You don't need my face in your face telling you to go hard today. You need me to give you a hug rather than a high five at the end of the day.
Yeah, man. Like honestly, like I couldn't agree more with everything you've said there. And that like the thing that should be noted about that intensity piece is that the intensity is relative to people's physical and psychological tolerances. And the physical tolerances are often quite obvious. Like, okay, you're starting to move poorly, or you're clearly starting to break down. So we're reading your tolerances. The psychological tolerances are always like kind of difficult to read. And in a previous life as a trainer, like early on, if somebody didn't push, I'd always be like, oh, this person just, this person's just not tough enough. And okay, that's all right. I guess I'll have to use lighter weight because they're just not tough enough for this intensity. And then as I get a little bit older, you realize that that person that came in and had to put the barbell down halfway through the set and you're thinking isn't tough enough, they're a CEO working a 70-hour week with 3 kids, looking after multiple other things. And this is their time to escape that. And at times, like, what's going on outside the gym can seep into that. And that's why they've put the barbell down. So just, understanding that context and getting to know people, that makes you such a better coach. And it is a moving target, like you said. Like on certain days, and we all know this, it's like just feels like everything's clicking and you're a world beater. And on other days, it just gets the better of you. And the coach should or has a duty to try to recognize what days are what for which athletes. And hey, that's a challenge. Like that's a real art. I've got it wrong many times, but experience seems to be the best teacher with that type of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And you have to be open and humble enough to put your hands up and say, okay, I was wrong or slightly wrong here. I missed the target just by a little bit. But you also need
Yeah,
the courage to like still be in the arena, right?
for
Like
sure.
I remember Carl back in the day, it must have been like 10 years ago, just turned around and was like, well, you have to be in the arena to like take the shots.
Yep.
It's like if you're there and even if you miss all of them, like just to show up again early tomorrow and give it a crack. Like you're going to take poor classes, right? It's going to happen, especially
Yep.
when you first start getting into it. Like it's like there's so many people here, so many different abilities. What is going on?
Yep.
It's a beautiful thing, but it's also a dynamic thing. It's like a chessboard that the rules end up changing every single day, and you're like, well, I can't get my head around this. It's like just sometimes you got to lay back with the waves and just kind of go with it. Did anyone hurt themselves? No. Did they have fun? Yeah. Well, you've got a couple of wins there. We can take something
Yeah.
away from that.
And look, the thing about experience is like it's a great teacher, but it often gives you the test before it gives you the lesson. Like you
Mm.
realize that you did something poor and then you learn from it rather than getting to learn from it first and then execute. You will get another chance to, but there's just those confronting moments. And this goes in any industry. You're just like, okay, that wasn't exactly the outcome that I'm looking for. And that sort of circles back to the honesty piece that I was talking about before. It's like, hey, when you realize it hasn't panned out how you thought it might, let's talk about that. Like, let's not pretend that it didn't not like that it didn't that it went that well when it didn't, but let's
Mm.
talk about why it didn't go well, and we can all learn from that.
So, personally speaking, and how do you deal with a miss or a failure or something that you kind of drop the ball on? How do you psychologically deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I I struggle with it, first of all. Like I think I really want to put forward the best service for my members all the time. And when I know that I've missed, whether it be just broadly speaking, a class that hasn't gone that well, or an interaction with an individual that I walk away from like, that wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be. And I mull it over and I think about that stuff. So first of all, there is still challenges with that. I don't have the perfect formula, but there's a few things that I've realized are really helpful. The first thing is remembering that this too shall pass. And I know that's like a little bit too high level philosophy potentially, but that feeling of dread of like, I can't believe that just happened. This is going to really haunt me for a while. I've learned that feeling actually doesn't last, and you can put that behind you. And the best way to put that behind you is with action. So if you've got the opportunity to take an action, you should take that action as quickly as you can. So if you have a bad class, you should put everything you can into making sure the next class is as good as possible. The second thing is, and I've just, I'm sure there'll be some people that potentially know better techniques than this, but whenever I have an interaction with someone that doesn't go the way that I was hoping, like I'm going to give a practical example, like just perhaps something in the coaching floor, try to coach somebody, they push back, I push back, and there's just this sort of weird tension that exists, and then they leave the gym. I follow it up as quickly as I can. And again, I just be as honest as possible. Now, ideally that's face to face. Maybe it's a phone call, maybe it's a text, but I've literally followed people out the gym and be like, hey, to the other coach, I'll be back in a second. I'm just going to chase so-and-so up before they get in their car. Grab them and be like, hey, I just want to talk about in there. I wanted to apologize about how that went down. I just got this feeling that it was uncomfortable for you. And, half the time they're like, oh, no, that's fine. Like, I'm glad you told me I was doing that. And then the other time, like perhaps they explain something to you and it's got nothing to do with what's going on in the gym, but I don't try to pretend that stuff doesn't happen. Like I chase that stuff up, and if it doesn't feel right in my gut, I try and address it as quickly as possible. So I'm a guy that tries to take action on that stuff pretty quick.
And you've just shown a great deal of humility, but a great deal of like humanity. You've kind of shown your heart is on your sleeve and you give a fuck, because you've been like, hold on a minute, I might have actually stepped over a line here that I didn't even know was there. And like, first of all, I want to reiterate, like, my heart's in the right place. I didn't mean to piss you off. And second of all, if I did, how do we not do that again? How do we both learn from this interaction rather than somebody being, hierarchically ahead of somebody else,
Dude, I'm going to be honest. You just froze for about 30 seconds and I didn't hear exactly what you said. I'm sorry.
Oh, have you got me? We back?
I got you now. When you just finished, I caught you.
Oh, that's all right, man. Yeah, just you've also essentially created a level playing field, right? Like we're both now on the same level rather than, just because I've got this 5-letter word on my back or my front beginning with C means I'm like, Billy Big Bollocks on the block. It's like, no, we're all humans, and in fact, me taking up this role means I'm now below everybody else. It's like, you guys come first in this hour, and you're showing the heart and the humility to be able to be like, okay, well, how do we both learn from this? Not just like, I know everything, I kind of the man in the high castle.
Yeah, that's such an important piece to articulate. Like, just like the coach should have a degree of knowledge, which people potentially sometimes think puts them on a pedestal, but ultimately the coach and the trainer it's a role of service. Like that's what it is. You are trying to provide service to people and facilitate something for them. And irrespective of your knowledge, if I feel like I haven't provided that service, I'm gonna try to atone for it. Now there's a balance there of obviously sticking to what I know to be true and making sure that people do the thing that I know will get them the results that they want, and sort of not yielding on that. But also if I've given you or I feel you've had a poor experience, it's really important that I don't think I'm above that and be like, well, this is how I do things, and if that doesn't suit you, well, bad luck. This isn't the place for you. Like that. It's a bit of an archaic way to run a business and to run a service.
Yeah, that's a great point. Running the business, if you want to look at it from a business standpoint, that's a member loss. That's a paying customer loss. You've just, even if it's a single transaction, you've just lost $50, $100, whatever it is, right? And then that's a walking billboard of negativity rather than positivity. It's the age-old thing of like, how do we get more people through the door? I don't know. Do the best fucking service you can, and you're gonna have 50 people literally grabbing people by the scruff of the neck, saying, "You need to come into this place. It's epic." And then it kind of grows automatically and organically. It might be a bit of an old school way of approaching things, but I think it forces our minds in the short, medium, and long term to think about the service. And I think that's a good thing, in my opinion.
It's definitely a good thing, man. And I'm so glad that the micro gym, if you want to call it, or the CrossFit affiliate, its main source of marketing still for us and for a large percentage of them is the referrals from the current clientele, because that way you can do marketing. And I mean, no one should ever feel dirty about doing marketing, and we do all sorts of marketing, but I feel really good about doing the most potent marketing I can, because that marketing is just providing the best service to my current members.
Yeah.
And then, eventually, whether it be after 2 weeks or 5 years, they say, "Hey, I've been trying to get my husband to join, and finally he asked me the other day about what he would need to do to join." And it's like, "Hey, you've been the one doing that work for 5 years, not me." And I feel good because I know that's going to make a difference to his life, to your life. And yeah, I think the service is the best marketing.
Yeah, and it's the result as well, right? Like, they're gonna then see their mates, their spouse, their whatever, like happier, healthier, fitter, whatever, being able to more capable, being able to do things. And you're like, hold on a
Yep.
minute, look, you did Zumba for 24 years, and you've never been able to do anything else. So like, you did spin class, and like, you literally spun your wheels. Sorry, pardon for the pun, that was awful, like a dad joke. But it's like, oh, what all changed? It's like, I don't know. I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and join my buddies into this place called CrossFit that we call The Box. And we walk on our hands up a wall and do some skipping, and it kind of sucks. And guess what? Like, I kind of like it, and the next thing you know, it fucking works. You got me all fired up, but it's like a magic pill, and it is in the interaction between people, man. Like, we get the privilege of taking a back step in a way of like, let's kind of take a perspective that we can see the whole room rather than being within it, and you can only like focus on your heart being through your mouth. We can kind of like stand at the corner of the room and watch people move and watch how they deal with a little bit of adversity, and you see that, that conversation, that, let's call it the inner bitch, talk to you, and they just figure out themselves, and they figure out their shit, and they figure out other people around. They look left and right, and they be like, "Oh, we can do this.
Yeah.
Like, we can actually get through this." And you see that interaction, and that is poetry in motion, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always, sometimes I have to catch myself that what the members are doing on the floor in any given CrossFit gym. You sort of like, oh yeah, this is normal. People are holding onto the barbell and they're pushing through this pain. It's like, I say this to my members pretty often. I try to let them know whenever I've got their attention enough, like at things like our birthday or in-house comp, like when I have to talk in front of the whole group, and I say, I need you guys to remember that what we're doing here is so not normal. Like, you
Yeah.
guys are the exception. Like, you are the 0.001% of people who are willing to get up and do something really challenging like this. And sometimes because all their mates do it, they're just like, yeah, did you do those thrusters unbroken? Yeah, I did them unbroken. It's like, do you know how few people in the world could do those thrusters unbroken? And it's not about the weight. It's about the diligence to just push through the discomfort and do that stuff. And yeah, even this morning, just watching some people push, I'm just like, this is incredible that people just come here and just, this is the norm to them. Yep, I'm gonna dig in and push like this. And yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that, because when I'm on the floor coaching my heart out like that, those moments, they're sometimes difficult to take, like that step back moment. Whereas on Saturday mornings, I go into the gym and I don't coach. I just stand behind the desk, and I'm meant to be doing work, but half the time I just stand there with my arms crossed, just watching it all take place. I'm like, this is incredible. And I just try to soak it all in like that. So that sort of bird's eye view is always really special to have. So I make sure I still get those moments every now and then as well.
I think you have to. It's a beautiful reminder of why we do this thing. We talk to ourselves 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, like, and sometimes you can end up backing yourself into a corner and talking to the man in the mirror a bit too much. And you just got to watch, just watch what you had at least a little contribution to. And
Sure.
you're like, oh, this is an incredible privilege.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, could things be better in another sense? Arguably, if you want to make whatever, point of money or, paid holidays or whatever the fuck it is, right? And you're like, yeah, okay, we could have chased whatever at a younger age. We could have gone chased whatever. But are you really going to stand here and watch these individuals and be able to develop a connection with folks that is beyond the surface level? And I think that's the biggest piece for me, man. If I'm honest with you, like now I have an inability to have a surface level conversation, and I joke about it all the time because like I'll meet a new member, right, and I'll just look at them. Hi, I'm Alex. I'm whatever Daphne, and I'll be like, oh, Daphne, what's your purpose?
Mm.
And they'll be like, the fuck? Like, I don't even know you. I was like, oh, sorry. We've done this for so long. I've like lost the ability to be like, oh, it's lovely weather today, right? Like, I
Sure.
just not interested because
That is so funny. I love it.
I'll just do it like instinctually. And I'm like, oh, okay, Alex, back up. Like you kind of encroaching in somebody else's garden here a little too much. Like, kind of pop your head over the fence and say hello. Be the nice neighbor for a couple of weeks, and then you can start asking people about the purpose.
Oh man, I think the world needs people like that, dude. So I don't think you should change. But I think what you're touching on there is that no one, and we've been talking a lot about this lately in terms of just our new members. Nobody just accidentally walks into a CrossFit gym and they're
Mm.
just sort of like here and they don't even know why. Like there's always a story behind it. And for a lot of people, that story can go pretty deep and touch on some pretty personal stuff. And I'm not going to use anyone's real story right now because that level of trust with my members is really important. But for a lot of people, it's like, hey, subconsciously, I grew up in a family where I watched people be unhealthy and I watched the impact that had on their quality of life. And I can now begin to feel that has been passed on to me. And, perhaps they've had children as well, and they don't want to pass that on to their children. And sometimes I don't even know that's what's going on, but that's the thing they're trying to stop. And that's some really serious stuff. It's not just sort of like, hey, just happened to be walking by and this looks fun and sure I'll sign up. Like that is a lot rarer than I think we think it is. Even though that's what it might sound like a lot of the time.
You're gonna end up making me fucking cry at the end of this conversation, man. But it's people. I do that all too often, man. It's bad. I like tear up in class. I'm like, oh, guys, just start moving. Like it's gonna get awkward. You're just gonna stand there watch me cry. But um,
Stop doing
like,
burpees.
yeah, Christ. Like, you start laying into someone and be like, right, you're gonna be the test dummy today. I'm literally just gonna rip into you for it. But I think we hide the deep insecurity and the real reason why we actually work out and we train, and we say we want to be able to do cool shit, and we say we want to be able to snatch body weight or run a mile or just actually do a burpee to the floor, and we throw all these things out, right? And you're like, okay, why? And a good
Yeah.
friend of mine a few years ago taught me about the law of five whys. You ask somebody why five times and you actually get to the real answer, right? And I was like,
Sure.
I'm going to take that and just keep pestering someone. I'm going to
Yep.
keep poking them in the ribs until they finally snap at me and give me the real answer. I was like, just drop the bullshit. Like, I'm not here for it. Like, I'm actually going to help you. The heart is on the sleeve and it's beating ferociously. Like, let's stick around. And the real reasons, mate, like, oh, we could sit here and spew stories about it all day and all night, and it is the reason why we end up getting up, and it's the reason why they get up, and then you
Yeah.
create like this kind of conglomerate of a community of people just individually there for real shit, real reasons. Not I want to lose 5 kilos. It's like, no, like the real reason behind it. And you're like, this is some powerful stuff, man. Really, really powerful stuff.
Dude, you're speaking my language, and we've been trying to tap into this with our members recently and getting them to consider, hey, why are you coming here? Because when it gets challenging, and I don't necessarily mean in the middle of the workout when you put the barbell down, but when there's a lot on, and perhaps you've gone from training 6 days a week to training 3 days a week, if you can fall back on that why and know the higher purpose of it, you'll still want to keep going.
Mm.
But if your why is sort of, oh, I just really need to PB my back squat in the next 10 weeks, well, then when you've had a quite few weeks, you're like, well, I guess this isn't happening, and you lose the I guess let's just call it motivation. But if there's a deeper sense of, hey, this is why I do this, then you can get through those more challenging times. And we've been celebrating some 10-year members lately, and what they all have as a common thread is not that they were like lucky and just sort of hung around for 10 years. It's like they all had significant adversity. Like, one of them had
Yeah.
like a compound fracture. One of them, went through some serious, family stuff and had to move away for a period of time. So it's not that we avoid that stuff. It's just that you get used to, okay, how do I navigate this? And finding that deep sense of why is really important.
It's a Simon Sinek, right? Start with why.
Hmm.
And I think it's
Absolutely.
that debate and that battle between intrinsic and extrinsic. The extrinsic is the 10 kilo on the back squat, but the intrinsic is what, like, you felt inadequate as a kid because of whatever. It's just like, okay, well, there's things in there, man. And like, yeah, there's much smarter people than you and I who put the jersey on in the morning and be like, right, let's push our knees out and keep our chest up. That's probably a good idea. Like, the clinical psychologists out there that could tell us the legitimate links. And you're like, great, we get to learn from those types of folks, but we also get to be the kind of generals on the floor. I was like, let's go sit in the trenches and let's go figure it out. Like, what does that mean for us today? Like, and then tomorrow we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And it's fucking powerful, man. I just go back to it, and it fires me up every time. And every time I try and bloody get out of this thing, it ends up dragging me back. And every time I get on the floor and actually see the benefit in somebody's eyes, you see that little twinkle, you're just like, oh man, I can't leave this shit behind. This thing is so
Well,
cool.
and I think the reason that it will always be interesting, and I recently wrote a little bit about, there's this typical sort of, I guess, rhetoric around like, oh, what are you going to do eventually when you finish coaching? Because surely you can't be coaching once you're
Hmm.
insert whatever age they think is appropriate to stop coaching. And I've realized that I actually don't think that'll be ever for me, because
Hmm.
like there'll always be somebody new to help. And
Yeah.
and and that will always be the thing that's fresh for me. Like, yes, teaching squats and pull-ups and whatnot, you might sort of think, oh yeah, like, surely you're getting sick of that. Well, one, I'm not. But two, what I'm actually teaching is I'm teaching people. I'm coaching people. And people are fascinating. And there's always new people. And like I might have been in this game for 15 years, or sometimes I always count, but like I started coaching in '09. So yeah, I guess 15 years exactly. But, I took two people for their first session last night. For them, that's the start of the journey,
Yeah.
and that is what I still get a major kick out of. And I don't think I'll ever get sick of that. So yeah, dude, I'm as fired up about it as you are.
Teaching life through the medium of fitness.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it.
absolutely.
That's what
And
we
like
do,
you said,
bro.
it's a privilege. Like it's a serious privilege when you get to tap into that piece with people and they realize that it's like, huh, you guys are kind of working on more than just the depth of my squat with me.
Mm.
And you can sort of see when people start to realize that.
Mm.
And that's special.
I got a question.
Uh-huh.
What are the three words you would tell your younger self?
Do I get to give them any context, or do I just have to say them as words?
You can have three individual words, or you could make a sentence out of it. Um, so some of the people I talk to, I'm like, oh, what are the three words you tell yourself? And like 15 minutes later, they finish, and I'm like, that was like
Yes.
three fucking essays, mate, not three words. But I appreciate the knowledge, like.
Yeah. Um, Geez, man, it's sorry for the pregnant pause to our listeners there. I just there's so much to talk about to that person that, started coaching and was very, very raw. Um,
Yeah.
but I think the main thing that I've begun to appreciate, and again, this isn't three words, so I'm sorry, is that people have their own complex journeys. And when I started coaching, I assumed that everybody was there for the same thing that I was there for. And that experience that I was getting and that thing that it was satisfying for me, I just assumed it was scratching that itch for everybody else.
Yeah.
But everyone's got their own reason that they're coming, and understanding exactly why that is, getting to the root cause of that is what's going to allow you to be the best coach, the best support, the best mentor, the best friend for them, rather than assuming that everybody is like you. That perhaps wasn't, I bet you if I think about this for the rest of the day, which I'm probably going to now, I'd have a better answer for you. But that is the thing that I know I didn't do when I was younger, and I know that I've only learned over time.
It's really profound. And to be honest, I'm going to be thinking about it for a while, which I do with practically all of them anyway. There's a lot of wisdom to be learned within people's stories, to see their perspective. You get to see life through their eyes. And I think it's magic,
Yeah.
and we can only do that with the honesty and sharing the story. And mate, I appreciate that a lot. I'm going to have to come down to Melbourne.
Mate, we would love to have you. I tell you what though, it's been so cold down here, but
Oh,
we're
come on.
yeah, actually,
Cold.
sorry, I shouldn't be. Yeah, we don't know. We're less prepared for cold than most people. This is the
Yeah.
thing. Melbourne's in denial. It's not honest with itself. Melburnians are not honest with themselves about the fact they live in a cold city and they're not prepared for it. So, dude, we'd love to have you.
Well, it's going to be the opposite in summer, mate. I'm going to be hiding inside. I'm going to be nocturnal, asking to do like 2 o'clock in the morning classes because it's the only time I can breathe. But
That's
hey,
funny.
mate, I have to come down. We'll do a workout. We'll have a beer,
Mate,
shoot some
it'd
shit.
be my pleasure to have you.
Brother, I appreciate your time, man. I know you're a busy guy, so I really do appreciate it. It's been an honor and a privilege.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, bro. Speak soon.
Cheers, bro.
My man. Bye, everybody.